1. Subtle short-term memory loss. Let's start with the most common and arguably the most overlooked early sign of dementia, short-term memory loss. Now, we've all had moments where we've forgotten something. You misplace your keys, you forget why you walked into a room, or you can't recall the name of that actor in a movie you just watched. That's normal. It happens to people of all ages. Our brains are constantly juggling information and sometimes they just drop a ball or two. It's human. But the kind of short-term memory loss that can be a red flag for dementia is different. It's not just about forgetting, it's about forgetting and not remembering that you forgot. Here's what I mean. Imagine someone asks you the same question several times in a single conversation. You answer, they nod, and just a few minutes later they ask it again. And then again. It's not that they didn't hear you, it's that the memory didn't stick. It's as if it never happened in their mind. Take Mary for instance. She's a lovely woman in her late 60s who came into my office with her daughter. Her daughter explained that Mary kept asking when her grandson's birthday party was, even though she had told her multiple times that it was on Saturday. Mary even wrote it down on a calendar, but later couldn't remember doing that either. She wasn't being forgetful in the usual sense. She was genuinely unaware that the memory had ever existed. This is subtle at first. It might start with forgetting appointments or where you put your purse. But over time, it extends to more important things, like whether you've taken your medication, paid a bill, or spoken to someone recently. Another important clue is forgetting recent events but remembering old ones clearly. A person with early dementia might tell you detailed stories about their childhood but be unable to recall what they had for lunch an hour ago. This kind of memory loss begins to impact daily functioning. It might cause missed appointments, unpaid bills, or misunderstandings with family. And it can be incredibly frustrating, for both the person experiencing it and those around them. If you're noticing this in yourself or a loved one, here are a few gentle actions you can take. Start a journal. Keeping track of daily events can help catch patterns and memory lapses. Gently prompt. If a loved one forgets something, avoid sharp corrections. Just kindly re-explain or guide them. See a doctor, especially if memory problems are frequent, increasing, or interfering with daily life. Short-term memory loss is often the first domino to fall. But when it's noticed and addressed early, it can open the door to support, structure, and tools that really make a difference. 2. Difficulty with planning or problem solving. Let's talk about something we often take for granted. The ability to plan, make decisions, and solve problems. Whether it's following a recipe, creating a grocery list, or managing your bills, your brain is working behind the scenes, organizing, prioritizing, and adjusting. In early dementia, this ability, what we call executive function, can start to falter. One of the clearest examples I can share is from a patient named Harold. Harold was a retired engineer, sharp, organized, and methodical. Every morning he would make a to-do list and go through it with precision. But over time, his wife noticed that Harold stopped following the list. He'd start one task, get distracted, and leave it half done. Then he'd jump to another task and forget why he started it in the first place. One day she found 3 open cans of paint in the garage. Harold had planned to repaint the fence, but hadn't painted a single board. He simply forgot what step came next. This kind of behavior is common in early dementia. You might notice inability to follow a multi-step process, like paying bills or assembling furniture. And mistakes with numbers or time, forgetting how to balance a checkbook, misjudging time needed for a task. Poor judgment, giving away money to scams, buying unnecessary items repeatedly. And it's important to understand, this is not about intelligence. Dementia affects how the brain organizes information, not how smart someone is. Often people begin to compensate. They rely on sticky notes, reminders, or family members to manage tasks they once did easily. They may become overwhelmed when presented with too many options or decisions. Some early signs to watch for include and not being able to follow a familiar recipe, taking much longer to complete tasks than usual, and missing or mismanaging bills or payments, struggling to keep track of medication schedules. If you notice these challenges in someone you love, the best approach is supportive, not controlling. Offer help in a way that maintains their dignity. Would you like me to go over the bills with you? How about we cook this together today? Would a checklist help us keep things organized? When planning becomes stressful instead of second nature, it's time to pay attention. 3. Confusion with time or place. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever woken up from a nap and had to think for a moment about what day it is? That's totally normal. But imagine feeling that disorientation much more often, and in places that should feel familiar. That's what happens to many people in the early stages of dementia. They begin to lose track of time, not just the hour but the day, the week, even the season. They might ask, is it Monday or Friday? Or, are we in the summer now? Even when the answer seems obvious. But even more concerning is when they become confused about where they are or how they got there. Let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor had lived in her neighborhood for 20 years. She walked to the nearby park every day. One afternoon, she called her daughter in tears. She was standing on a street just a few blocks from home and didn't recognize anything. She didn't know how she had gotten there or how to get back. She wasn't lost in a new place. She was lost in a place that had once been deeply familiar. This kind of confusion is a hallmark of dementia. It goes beyond forgetfulness. It affects spatial awareness and the brain's ability to connect surroundings with memory. Here are other signs of this symptom. Getting lost on familiar routes. Not knowing how they arrived somewhere. Confusing night and day, thinking it's morning when it's evening. Asking the same time/date repeatedly despite reminders. Time confusion can also impact routines. A person might get dressed for bed at 10 a.m. or forget that lunch was just eaten. In the early stages, people may try to hide this confusion. They might laugh it off or make excuses. But inside, they often feel fear and embarrassment. What can you do? Stick to routines. Having a predictable daily schedule helps reduce anxiety. Use visual cues. Calendars, clocks, and labeled reminders can support orientation. Stay calm and kind. If someone is confused, don't argue. Reassure them, guide them, and give them time. Time and place confusion is disorienting, but with understanding and support, it becomes manageable. 4. Trouble with language and communication. Words are how we connect. Whether we're chatting with friends, telling a story, or asking a question, language is at the heart of our relationships. So when words start to slip away, it's not just frustrating, it's frightening. One of the most noticeable early signs of dementia is difficulty finding the right words, following a conversation, or expressing thoughts clearly. Let me introduce you to Bill. Bill was a retired professor. He loved giving speeches, telling stories, and engaging in deep conversations. But over the course of a year, his wife noticed something had changed. Bill started repeating himself. He would begin a sentence, pause, and then seem to lose his train of thought. Sometimes he would substitute words in strange ways, like calling a refrigerator, that food cooler thing. At first it seemed like normal aging. But soon, Bill avoided group conversations altogether. He became quiet and withdrawn, not because he had nothing to say but because he couldn't find the words. This language difficulty can show up in several ways. Struggling to name common objects. Repeating words or phrases often. Losing track in the middle of a sentence. A difficulty following or participating in conversations. A writing that becomes disorganized or unclear. And here's the heartbreaking part. Many people begin to isolate themselves because of this. They feel embarrassed. They fear being misunderstood or corrected. They withdraw, not because they want to, but because it feels safer than trying to speak and failing. If someone you love is showing these signs, be patient. Let them finish their thoughts without rushing them. Don't correct too often. Gently guide, but don't make them feel wrong. Encourage expression in other ways, writing, drawing, even music. Communication is more than just words, it's connection. And your patience can help preserve that connection. 5 changes in mood, personality, or behavior. Now here's a sign that surprises a lot of people. Emotional and personality changes. We usually think of dementia as a memory problem. But remember, the brain doesn't just store facts. It regulates emotions, judgment, empathy, and behavior. So when dementia begins, these areas are affected too. You might see sudden mood swings, increased anxiety, fear, or paranoia, withdrawal from social situations, loss of interest in favorite activities, irritability, or even aggression. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was known as the nice guy in his community, always smiling, always helping neighbors. But his wife began to notice that he was snapping at her over small things. One day he accused her of hiding his car keys. The next, he refused to go to his weekly poker game, something he had enjoyed for years. He wasn't just being difficult. His brain was changing and he didn't understand what was happening. People with dementia often lose their emotional filter. They may become impulsive, say inappropriate things, or act out of character. Others may grow quiet and detached as depression or confusion sets in. This can be painful to witness. You might feel like the person you knew is slipping away. But here's something important to remember. This isn't their fault. And it isn't your fault either. Your loved one is still there, just harder to reach. They need your understanding more than ever. What can you do? Respond with calm, not confrontation. Validate their emotions even if the logic is flawed. Seek support, for them and for yourself. Consider talking to a doctor about managing emotional symptoms. Emotional changes can be subtle or sudden, but they matter. They're a window into what the brain is struggling with, and an early sign that should never be ignored. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one. Stay well, stay inspired, and see you next time.